Now that we have the fuel tank in place, we can start the truck up, bring it up to full air pressure, and we can address this parking brake situation, which is just 2 bolts that are missing on the top. So it should be not so difficult, but as you find on these Unimog projects, nothing's really that simple. So I'm sure we'll run across other problems, and you will be here to see it happen. All right, we got our bolts in for the parking brake. Unfortunately, Bellmetric didn't have this size, so I did have to order them from McMaster Car. This is it's 25 millimeters long. It's 10 millimeter socket. I believe it's an M12 by 1.5. So that's your bolt. And the important thing that I wanted was the black oxide coating so they don't rust. And Bellmetric had some regular black ones, but not the black oxide. And you can't do stainless because the same size stainless bolt is going to be much weaker than a steel bolt. So something important like this, you can't replace it with a weaker bolt. That's a parking brake. Pretty important. So anyway, let's put these on. Oh, here's the washers, lock washers, same thing, black oxide, M12. First thing we're going to do is put a little blue Loctite on there as well. Do not want these coming off again if that's what indeed happened. Okay, so this is the parking brake right here. And this is actuated by air. And as you saw in the last clip, moves back and forth. If you've seen previous videos, I've had to actually release this manually so that we could move this and get it towed. And one day when I was under here working on the fuel tank, I noticed that these 2 bolts here were completely gone. Now there are only 4 bolts that hold this thing on, so these 2 top ones, and then there are 2 on the bottom. So obviously you can see in the clip, this thing, when it's actuating, it moves, which it should not be doing. This bracket here is completely loose, can move it back and forth. That should not be the case either. So this video is about me replacing these 2 bolts after I found that they were just completely missing. That looks a little bit better. There we go. Got it. All right. That wasn't so bad. Let's try bolt number 2. Is that a different bolt? There's no way. They put 2 different bolts in here. That would be... Alright, what we're going to do is we're going to replace all 4 bolts with new bolts. So this one's in, that one's good. That could be why this came loose. That does not like to go in there. I think maybe these were cross-threaded by somebody at some point. So I guess what we're gonna do is we're gonna run a tap through there before we do more damage and see if we can clean those threads out, because that's part of the problem probably, is this was not fully seated, so it was loose. So that means that that bracket was slightly loose, so you probably got vibration, which loosened up the other bolts, which were tight. Well, maybe. Who knows? So let's get a tap through there. Alright, so this bolt size is M12 by 1.5. Well, and that threads in no problem with this one up top here. It has not gone in very well. Well, it did end up going in this one after I cleaned it and put a new one in. So I think that's what all of them are. It uses a 10mm Allen wrench, and we have a M12 by 1.5 tap. We're gonna see if that works. And that's not gonna be long enough, of course. Oh man. Well, that sucks. So that means I have to take the whole thing off to be able to tap that thread. And the question is, if I unbolt these, will I be able to push it out of the way? And the answer is absolutely not, because there's a hard line going to it. So I would have to take that off as well. So yeah. Alright, so this is interesting. Got this tab, and on the end here it has a square, and that is 7mm. 7mm wrench fits on there perfectly. And it's made to go in this chuck. This chuck obviously doesn't fit like we just showed, so that's out. But what I did find was that this 7mm is the same size as this ratchet. What is this, 1/4 inch? This is really small. And that is the same size as that, so I can put that in there, which then means I have that. And I could put any size socket I want on the end of this. And if I do an 8mm, I can put an 8mm Allen. That fits snugly. So now I have the full deal. I should be able to get in there with this. And if I need it even longer, I can use an extension here. Let's give that a shot. Told you this wouldn't be simple. There we go. Take that. So there's nothing there for that bolt to bottom out on. It should have been able to go right through, so it was definitely a thread situation. I can definitely see that now. All right. So let's try our bolt. A little bit of Loctite on there. All right, we are golden. Yes, we are. Whew, all right. Let's take this one out. Since these two bolts came out, all the pressure was on that, and it was probably putting twisting pressure on those bolts, and if they were loose at all, maybe it was causing them to go back and forth and screw with the threads. That's my thought. Let's just put a new one in there, why not? The fat part of these sockets really affects the angle sometimes if it's a tight position, like it was hitting on here, causing it to angle, which wouldn't allow me to start it correctly. So this little ball on the end of here, very helpful. Now we can use this. Well, not really. Scratch that. have to use that so we can get in there and get it tight. All right. You can see there. All right, we have 4 new black oxide hardened. I forget the rating on these, but it's pretty high. Bolts and lock washers, and then we reused the flat washers that are on these 2 bolts here. So that one's done. That one there. There's one there and one there. So we had to redo the threads on this one. I shouldn't say redo. I had to clean out the threads. And we are good to go, I believe. It looks like it's in a similar position. It's like a 0.5 millimeter off there. Hopefully that doesn't make a difference. Let's test it out, see what we got. One more thing while I'm under here, which is more of a question. This seems to be leaking. Why is it leaking? And how do I stop that? Leaking's maybe a strong word. Well, I don't know what's going on there. Seeping might be a better word for it. Yeah, let me know. Alright, that's the end of the parking brake fix. Not as easy as I had hoped, but not as bad as I had thought it could be, or any of these projects can be. So, end up replacing all the bolts. One of them had to be tapped. I don't know why it was the way it was. Possibly because one of the bolts came loose and came out, or 2 of them came out. Possibly the last person to mess with it didn't tighten the bolts correctly or cross-threaded them, and that's why they weren't tight. I don't really know. Who knows the history on this? So anyway, that's all I've got for you today on this project. Now we go to the board and do the 1,000 others. Thanks for watching.